Folks, welcome again here. It's another episode of the Soul Sessions, and I am your host, Soul. But with me today, he's a two-time former ICW Tag Team Champion, Krieger. Welcome to the show, pal.
Thanks for having me, mate. Thank you.
Oh, absolute pleasure, Krieger. But what I love to do, every guest has a story, and every story has a beginning. So, Krieger, how did your story begin as a wrestling fan?
I remember when I was a wee boy, it was me, my brother, and my cousins. We all used to get together on. I'm trying to remember. I think I might be showing my age here, but I think it was Saturday morning. You would have had. I'm not old enough for the sort of Hulk Hogan carry on, but I think it was Saturday morning on Sky One back in the day. You could watch SmackDown, and then I remember me, my brother, and my cousins just battering lumps at each other, thinking thinking we were wrestlers back then. I think ever since then, it's just sort of been hooked. I think everybody's got a similar story, haven't you? I guess anyone that is actually wrestling were just fans that took it way too far.
Well, hey, we all love to take it a bit too far, but you would take it most the farthest, actually entering the square circle as well. Krieger, what was that journey? Because I know, back in the day, the Scottish wrestling scene was, kind of bare. There was not much opportunities to learn and train. So what was it, your journey back then, back in the day, to becoming the man you are now?
So I started training in 2013, towards the middle of 2013. I was at uni. I really didn't like the course I was doing. It wasn't for me. And I thought to myself, what would I really want to do? And obviously the only logical answer was a wrestler. So I googled wrestling schools. I was really lucky. You hear a lot of folk who get these brilliant stories where they travelled 3 hours to go to training. The training school that I went to was literally like 20 minutes from my house. So I was really lucky. Do you know what I mean? I landed my feet there. And then sort of showed up one day, and the rest is history. The first day I showed up, but I had it in my head. Again, my dates might be off here. In my head, the performance centre hadn't long opened up round about then, 2013 maybe. And I was going to Airdrie Sports Centre. I was driving to Airdrie Sports Centre, and I thought to myself, I wonder where the ring and that's kept. And then I walked in, and it was just crash mats on a badminton court. So it was a bit of a reality check when I walked in, but they must have left an impact because I've stuck.
Well, it's a stylish way to start. The old badminton, Andy Murray's just practicing the other side, and you're taking a power driver on the other side. I think
Hey, exact.
fair plan indeed, pal. But when you get into that ring, I've had many guests on, and they've said that the worst part's bumping, or some people say hitting the ropes, or being chopped for the first time. For you, Krieger, what aspect of wrestling training was kind of like the oh shit, jolting up, like, oh yeah, this does really fucking hurt?
I think anyone that's wrestled, or anyone that's even done a day's worth of training, I think you'll always remember the very first bump that you've took. The very first bump, just naturally, you're not going to tuck your head and whatnot, so most folk are going to rattle their head. First bump was terrible. I think the thing that I found hardest when I first started getting on shows is the first couple of shows I'd done. It was all friends and family shows when I first started. The sort of trainees were the ones that would try and sell tickets and whatnot. I found it really difficult to wrestle in front of my friends and family at the time. Like I found it much easier. I still find it much easier to wrestle in front of folk that I don't know. You know what I mean? Because if I'm wrestling in front of strangers and I mess up, I'm not going to see them the next day. They're not going to slag me. You know what I mean? But so that was something that I found difficult, because you get folk that see you in the house one minute, and then the next minute you're cutting about wearing spandex and terrible fake tans half the time. So.
Well, it's a stylish, way, my friend. You could walk into a pub 1 minute, dripping tan, glass of shards and everything, and chop the shit, and be like, yeah, that's my job. Nothing too fancy. But mentioning Scotland as well, our whole wrestling scene's quite varied. We've got so much from Pro 2 to ICW, FWA, and more companies are starting up now. With Scottish wrestling, Craig, when you went out there and was like, I got to go find dates, I got to go find companies, was it quite easy, or was there a bit of self-learning and having to learn about other companies to go to?
I think that I probably had it a lot easier than a lot of people. I found it difficult at the time, but looking back on it, I can understand that I had some advantages that other people maybe didn't. I kind of, again, kind of landed on my feet, because when I started training, I drove. I had no issue driving everywhere, so that's what got my foot in the door with the holiday parks. Ended up doing maybe 5 years worth of summer runs for Brian Dixon because I was driving. That's what got me back in the day. That's the reason that I got like 5-star, which I know obviously folk go over laugh and a joke about 5-star, but at the time we were getting on TV weekly. We were getting a very good wage considering the level we were at. That's what got me there. That's what got my foot in the door initially at ICW. But I guess everyone's got their own different story, haven't they? But mine was really because I was more than happy to go to every single show. I was more than happy to drive whoever I had to for shows to get my foot in the door. I've never been that good. I'm still probably not as good as I should be at sort of sending CVs and pestering promoters sort of online and whatnot. Most of the stuff I've got has been by showing up at shows, helping to build the ring, and then just sort of working my way in that way.
Yeah, no, of course. I want to touch on something you mentioned there. You mentioned like wrestling for holiday parks and stuff like that. And I've had guests who've wrestled in very different environments. But I feel like, the holiday parks and like especially the kid-friendly shows, they're a very good learning opportunity because they're a different kind of environment you have to cater to. Would you agree with that, Krieger?
100%. 100%. I think if you asked anyone that's done the holiday park, I think most of us would credit it for us becoming the wrestlers that we are. Because the vast majority, if not all of the people that are at the holiday park shows, they're not wrestling fans. They're people that have taken the kids on holiday, or their kids that have went on holiday with their parents. And it's your job to get them to care about that, even if it is only 20 minutes, the wee story that we're trying to tell for that 20 minutes. And it's where you learn that maybe the majority of fans don't really care about the really cool moves that you can do. I'm saying that as if I can do any really cool moves. I can't. The majority of fans don't really care about that stuff. They care about the sort of the pantomime aspect of it. And again, like going back to you asking where it all started, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think most people, when you think back to when you were a kid watching wrestling, what you remember is the characters, is the stories. You talk to a lot more people in wrestling than I do, but I've yet to meet someone that says it was a Hurricane Rana that got them hooked, for talking's sake.
No, hey, Craig, you're very right there, my friend, and very good ideology for wrestling as well. Characters are important. And I want to know, Craig, when you were a young kid, what characters specifically, connected with you and really built that bond of you with wrestling?
Well, I absolutely loved Gangrel when I was wee.
Oh.
Absolutely loved Gangrel. I thought the whole Brood thing was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Obviously, I think everyone round about my age loved The Undertaker. Doesn't matter what age you are, everybody loved Jeff Hardy. Early Kane with the mask and stuff. Early Kane was very cool. And I guess everybody loved The Rock and Stone Cold.
Yes. No, they are stars above anyone else, Stone Cold and The Rock. But I want to go back to Taker. I love Taker. Taker's an absolute legend, but his streak is probably the most iconic part of his career. So I want to know, Krieger, what is your favorite match within the streak?
Oh, it's got to be the first Taker and Michaels, WrestleMania 25 for me. In my opinion, I think that's the best match of all time.
Oh, really? What is it about the first encounter that's so special than the second, which we had Shawn Michaels' career on the line?
I don't know. It's a hard one to say. I think maybe at that time, what was that, WrestleMania 26? I don't know what age I would have been then. I always think that when it's sort of, I think just the way that story was told, I think that I personally never really bought into Michaels winning the second one. Whereas I can remember the build up to 25 and me and my mates really being on the fence of if anybody can beat him, it could be Shawn Michaels.
That is stellar, man. I tell you what, thinking back to that whole time, both storytelling exceptional. But I want to know as well, Craig. Taker had many other potential opponents he could have faced within that time before his final match of the streak. Is there someone you would have loved to have had, a match with Taker at Mania before he ended up losing the streak to Brock Lesnar? So anyone on the roster at that time period?
Oh, that's a good question. I get it's probably the easy answer, and I know that he did wrestle him, but I think that Taker and Cena earlier on could have been amazing.
Oh.
Especially because back then you just assumed Cena was going to win anytime he wrestled. And it was the same for Taker at Mania, wasn't it? You never really thought he was going to get beat. So I think they two, that would have been amazing.
Oh, the old.
What about yourself? Who would you have put him against?
Me? Oh yeah, making my mind work now, Greg. This is turn the tables of the interview now. So let's think now. I would have loved maybe a Rob Van Dam, RVD. That would have been
nice.
Mania.
Nice. That would have been good.
I'll pop my collar for that one. I've got a verification. Good choice. But something I do want to touch upon, Greg. You mentioned 5-star, wrestling, and me and you know that, and probably most people in the UK know 5-star. But I don't think our viewers in the States might know. So if you could inform them, first before we talk about 5-star, what was 5-star wrestling?
So 5-star was 5-star's like it's a TV channel in sort of UK Freeview, I think it is.
Aye.
So it's not a massive TV channel, but I guess with it being Freeview, it technically is in a lot of houses. And they got behind a sort of they started up their own wrestling promotion, and they really went for it for a time being. Like, they had Rey Mysterio on it, they had Jack Swagger at the time on it. I'm trying to think who else they had on it. Alberto Del Rio, a lot of big names back then, or still big names, but and then obviously there was the rumours circulating that they were offering CM Punk $1 million to appear on it and stuff. And it was, and they ran all the. So I think in total, it probably only lasted about 2 months or something initially. But they were doing all the big venues, so they were doing like the Echo Arena in Liverpool. Again, if there is folk that's not for the UK listening, they were doing the same venues that the WWE do house shows in. Now, very different attendances, but they were still running the venues, and there seemed to be a lot of guys from there that then went on to really big things. Like the sort of main star of that run was, or the whole sort of TV product was built around Zach Gibson, who obviously shortly thereafter got signed, I think, to World of Sport and then NXT UK. Or so it certainly it benefited us that we're on it, like, hugely.
No, definitely. Some people may think of it as a negative thing, but for obviously you guys and many of the other talent that were wrestling on it, it was kind of like a launch pad, would you say, correct?
Yeah, it was really good experience. Obviously, it was the first time, obviously, doing any sort of arena stuff was really cool, but also the sort of, it was our first introduction really to sort of like production cues and stuff for entrances and certain spots and all that sort of carry on. So it was really good. It was really good. I know that, and I can understand why people that weren't involved for the outside looking in. I can understand some of the stick that it gets. Of course, I can. But from a personal point of view, having done it, it was an experience I would not change.
Exactly. You got to get, you got good things out of it. And that's the main thing at the end of the day. And obviously, we can't talk about Scotland without old ICW. The old crazy place that is, and it's got so much connections to us. But I want to know for you yourself, Krieger, how did you, find out about ICW initially?
So I think that, I'm trying to think. So when I had just started training, I think that was just round about the time the first Insane Fight Club was on TV, and it had really the whole sort of thing exploded from there. And obviously, you had the sort of larger than life characters. Alice himself was a larger than life character, and then it was Jester and Grado. And I mean, there's a reason why they two guys have been around for as long. There's also a reason why they two guys have managed to do as well in like pantomime and stuff as well, because their character stuff's so good. And then as soon as you started training, as soon as you took more of a sort of real interest in Scottish wrestling, it was obvious that was the place to be. The whole sort of UK scene back then was at the time where it was probably just on the up. Or maybe not just on the up, but it was just about to really explode to the size that it did. And I think it was just in the matches that were going on at ICW back then. Like if you think back to that roster, it's a who's who of UK wrestling. It really is. And I'll not go through every name because you'd be here for ages, but so many of them are now making full-time living out of wrestling in the States. So many of them have got contracts, different places. It really was. It was a genuinely world-class roster that they had back then.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those Fight Club documentaries you mentioned there, I feel like they were so integral for ICW, going along as a Scottish-based promotion to be now being known as like a UK-based promotion. It was just such that upshot. Do you think, those Fight Club documentaries will probably be synonymous, with the rise of Scottish wrestling?
I think it will be, in terms of the mainstream appeal, yeah. Well, I think that's the most mainstream Scottish wrestling's ever been. Like it's probably the only time that we've had guys that would walk down the street and get recognised. Like every time back then, it obviously it wasn't overnight, but it used to be that when you were going out and asking shops to put up posters or somebody to take a flyer and whatnot, you would always get the odd person that would say, "Oh, that's like the stuff that Giant Haystacks used to do." That used to be what it was. And then within you had that documentary, and what felt like overnight, it was suddenly that's that stuff Grado does. And Grado had became that for the Scottish scene. It went like it was a genuine he still is. He's a mainstream celebrity. And it's now at the point, and it probably was at the point back then as well, where Grado's bringing eyes to the scene as opposed to it being the other way about now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Grado's pretty much, our Tom Hanks. He's the big man. We all love to see what he's doing, and he's either on Cop Squad, BBC, or Pantos and everything. Man's doing everything, but especially with those Fight Club documentaries, both of them had their own stories. The first one was, Grado coming in and then Jack Jester winning the championship. The second one was the England tour and then Drew Galloway coming back to the company and him facing Jester. Out of your opinion, Krieger, which documentary is your favorite? The first one or the second one?
If there was a gun to my head, I would probably say the first. Just because of the impact that it had. The second one obviously had, and I mean, Drew's Drew, do you know what I mean? Like Drew coming back to ICW is, at least for me, probably the most iconic moment in Scottish wrestling. And then it's a hard choice, because I think the first one, people stuck around with the documentary because they loved Grado, but when they went in to see Grado, or when people came to the shows off the back of that, they came to see Grado, and then you had so many different characters, so many different sort of match styles that hooked people in. So it was a perfect storm.
Perfect storm indeed, and leading to your, importance to the company as well, because you've done some great stuff with ICW. I mean, I can't talk about yourself, Craig, without looking sharp, and you being two-time ICW tag team champion. When was the story of you first meeting Lou King Sharp and forming this tag team?
So me and Lou trained at the same training school but different places. So
Oh,
there was a class that ran in Barhead at the time. There was a class that ran in Airdrie. I went to Airdrie. He went to the Glasgow one. And we went to a show one day, and somebody was like, I think used to are quite similar. Used to have got quite similar characters. I think you would do quite well. And then it was a joke for a while. People kept saying, like, "Aye, okay, whatever." And then eventually it was one show. It was one of the smaller shows, that they just threw us together to see if it would work, and it did. And then ever since then, we've sort of been a team. We went through a couple of different styles as a team, but kind of stuck around together. So, and it's been great. Like you said, I think that we've probably, well, it's certainly benefited both of us. I think that's one of the good things. I personally don't think there's a weak link in the team. I personally don't think that there's someone in the team that massively outshines the other. I think it just works well as a team.
partner duo, you're iconic and you get together and you've got that link. But I know your teams have, you and Lou have had a couple of names difference as a tag team, right? You've been Proper Mental, the Fight Network, Glasgow Grind House. Are you just going through a dictionary like, right, we'll share this for a week? Oh, that's been copyright strike now. Change. What is your favorite tag team name, Krieger? I gotta know,
man. I like Glasgow Grind House. I like Glasgow Grind House. It was something that when we had first came back from sort of lockdown and stuff. So basically what had happened was me and Lou won our first ICW tag titles on the show or two shows before the whole world shut down.
All right.
And then obviously we were away for a while. ICW managed to do the sort of closed doors tapings. And on our first defence, we lost the titles. And I think me and Lou had sort of put our heads together at that point and really thought that we quite strongly didn't want it to be that was the peak of the team, that we'd won the titles, went away for ages, lost them, and then it sort of went away. But we did also both feel as if we, instead of blaming anyone else, we looked at our own stuff, and at the time we probably had got a bit stale, and we'd been doing the same stuff realistically since we'd got to ICW. So we had, I think, we done some online classes with Chris Silvio. He's one of the sort of NWA producers and whatnot. Oh, wow. So we done some online classes with him for sort of character development and that sort of stuff. So he helped out a lot with that as well. And then eventually we came up with that. And I think since then it's almost as if we've got a second wind. So that would be my favourite.
Oh, good. You've lit that fire under your arse and you're out there and you're kicking ass and getting titles. I know obviously at Shugs Hoose Party 8, you'd have a hell of a match, you and Lou, against BT Gunn and Kaz Evans. And I want to talk about the ending of that match. You guys sadly lost and Lou took the mic and then said it's your time, to go on your own and then just left through the crowd. What's going on there, pal?
So Lou's kind of off doing his own thing for the time being. He's off doing his own thing for the time being. So right now I'm flying solo in ICW, which as much as I love Lou, as much as I would have happily been a career tag team there. I also think that I do have a lot to offer in the singles division. I don't really feel as if I've ever had the chance to show that. I think since we've went our separate ways, I think I had a match with Theodoros that opened an ICW show. The last show that I'd done, I main evented with Jason Reed. So I think I'm showing that it doesn't matter where they put me on the card, doesn't matter who they put me against, I can hold my own. And so here's hoping that we can maybe add some singles gold to the CV as well at one point.
Well, absolutely, Craig. I mean, I think what Lou saw, and I think all of us see as well, you have that drive to become the main guy on the poster for ICW, the main dog. I mean, whether a Zero-G champion or world champion, I think that's in your future, pal. I mean, you got to see that too, right? We all see it.
I think I certainly think it's possible, and I'll be honest. I think, like you said earlier, I think I've got a sort of fire lit under me just now. Um, I've had same as everyone. I've had some ups and downs. Kind of a couple of times um, I've maybe been my own worst enemy in terms of not being in as good shape as I should be and whatnot. I don't think my actual in ring work's ever been an issue. But I think now all the parts are starting to come together at the right time. So I definitely think now one of the good things from a fan point of view about ICW, maybe one of the not so good things about from my point of view in terms of trying to get gold is it is a very stacked roster. It's a very young, hungry, very talented roster, and everyone's got a fire lit under them. I mean, we want to get back to the Hydro, we want to get back to the SECC, and the only way we do that is if we're back to what ICW was at the time we were talking about, where every single match on that card is either world class or damn near close. So I think every single person on that roster's got a fire lit under them just now.
Hey, ICW is burning and it's burning bright. You know, ICW's got a great history, past and everything. And I know it was on the WWE network for a good time as well. And, you know, you get to see yourself on that network when ICW was on the network for WWE. And you could see yourself, your matches on that place where you could see other people like Cena, Taker, Austin, Brock. That got to meant something so special to you, mate, right?
Yeah, it was really, really cool. It was. I think it's one of the things that it gives you that wee bit of a validation. More so for people sort of out with wrestling, as daft as that sounds. Like maybe mates that you've got for school or family members that are very supportive, but maybe don't quite get it. As soon as everyone knows WWE or everybody knows WWF, as soon as it's mentioned, we're on that sort of streaming platform, it opens a lot of eyes. And I think again for everyone that got that, obviously ICW, Progress, WXW. Apologies if I'm forgetting anything else, but it really sort of gave the full indie scene a bit of validation that it had been. I don't think it needed it, but it certainly deserved for years.
No, absolutely. Do you remember the first time you saw yourself on network? Did you have to like reset your phone and be like, nah, this is a blooper reel. What the shit?
Well, we were the first time that we seen ourselves on the network. So the first thing of myself and Luz that went up on the network was we were wrestling the Kinky Party in a match at the garage, and before that, now this is back in the day when me and Lou were doing more sort of comedy stuff and whatnot. And the promo that we had to cut before that was me and Lou trying to get in the correct headspace to wrestle the Kinky Party. So the promo was essentially 2 minutes of Lou taking off his bum bag and his belt and getting me to scalp his arse. Which saying it on its own doesn't sound funny at all, but me and him thought it was very funny. But when I'm not going to lie, there was a bit of dread when we seen that was the first thing up the network, because me and Luke, oh, that's it, that's the dream dead. There's no danger that they're going to look at that and say we need to get these two guys.
Oh god, I'm just thinking it now, Krieger. Vince McMahon's sitting there watching this, like, yes, I think I could do things with them in NXT. Yes, I'm thinking it now. Future champions, man. It's an image, Krieger. It's an image. You know, think about it. You were there in NXT. He's like, how did you get to be involved with us? Got my mate's arse on the network for daddy. It's something, man. It's something. But I want to talk about outside of ICW. You've actually faced a previous guest who's appeared on the show here before, Andy Roberts. You've faced him in BCW, and Andy's a hell of a guy. Obviously, he's got FBWA, training his own students and everything. Going against Andy, who's got a hell of a mindset. What's that like?
Again, it's great. I think that for years the benchmark for British heavyweights on the indie scene was Rampage Brown. Like that was, I think anyone would agree with that. Rampage was the benchmark. Obviously Rampage has been other places. Rampage isn't as active as it used to be on the indies. So when you're talking about British heavyweights right now that are probably the benchmark, or certainly the benchmark in Scotland at the very least, you're probably putting Andy's name up the top there. So getting the chance to wrestle Andy, and getting the chance to show myself, to show the fans, to show the promoters that I don't look out of place with these guys. Without trying to sound arrogant, I'm confident in my own ability. But it's getting the chance to routinely show that I can hang with the guys.
Repetition of your skills and showing, I'm here, I'm ready to take all the gold that I can within the Scottish scene, or heck, even in the UK scene as well, because why not? Because I also know, Krieger, you do hold 2 champions right now, right? You hold it for Pro Wrestling Scotland and Big Massive Wrestling, if I'm correct, yes?
Yep. I've got the 2 just now. Yep. That's the thing. It's trying to add a bit more of them. It's trying to get myself to. I think any promotion you're in, I think you would be lying if you said you didn't want to be the champion. You want to be the main guy. You want to be the one that's in the main events. You want to be the guy that either the people are paying to support or the guy that people are paying to see get beat. If you don't want to be that, then more power to you. I hope you have fun, but that's what most folks should be striving for, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely, pal. Now, I'm not actually going to ask a question. I'll be like, how's it being a double champion? What's your favorite matches? I want to know, how is it carrying those sons of bitch titles? Because I know they're heavy. I know they can be heavy.
Well, Big Massive Wrestling don't trust me to take it home. They keep after it, and to be honest, I can kind of understand it. They've got lovely white straps. They've got lovely white straps. They're well aware of how much spray tans I'm going for, so I don't think they want it covered in fake tan. So it's not as bad. It's not as bad. The hard part is, and I know it's first world problems, but so the weekend just passed. I was defending both of them on the one show, in the one match. And making an entrance with both was very difficult. So I've got a newfound respect for Big Roman. That must be hard. Because I went through all sorts of different variations backstage. I was like, do I wear both? Do I wear one on top of the other? Do I put them over both shoulders, but then I can't really lift my arms? Do I put one round my neck the way Biker Taker used to? And honestly, it was quite difficult. And I started trying to recycle all the double champion entrances that I could remember for playing SmackDown versus Raw back in the day. But none of them really worked, to be honest. So
I think you need a wise man, mate. You need a wise man to carry your title. You need your own Paul Heyman.
Well, 100%. So the DMs are open if anybody's interested.
Or who knows? Maybe instead of the white strap, get your own custom title and just have it brown, so you're not going to stain.
That is a very good idea.
Now, I want to touch upon something that's actually been recently announced as we record this. Impact, they're coming over to the UK for their big tour. The first time they've been over here in a while. But they're having a gut check, here in Glasgow, which talent can go and maybe get a contract, with Impact in a developmental deal. Krieger, is that something you wish to...
Oh. I don't know did that freeze there? No. Can you hear me?
No, you're good. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, my earphones made a weird noise. Yeah, I seen that actually when I seen that this afternoon. It's definitely something I'm going to look into, 100%. I'll be honest, at the time of this, I've not had a chance to look into it properly, but 100%. I mean, these opportunities don't come around every week, and it's one of the ones that if you go and it's not the right time. I've always kind of thought, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I've never really viewed it as a competition between myself and everybody else. I quite firmly believe that if I take care of what I can take care of, and if I can get myself to the level that I need to be at, then if you're good enough someone will come in for you eventually if you're good enough. It doesn't matter if I don't need anyone else to be bad for me to do well. So if it's definitely something I'm interested in, it's definitely something I'm going to look into. And worst case scenario, it's just a really good learning experience.
Absolutely. Shoot your shot. You might get something good out of it, you might get something bad, but it's a learning opportunity. What I also want to touch upon as well, Krieger, obviously, I feel like you're going to do exceptionally well there. You're a guest of my show, so I fully expect it. But I want to know, is there any other talent within the Scottish scene that you feel like if they're watching this should go for it, that have been on your eye?
I think that I'm inevitably going to miss people out here because there is so many. I think one of the guys that I've been lucky enough to wrestle quite a lot, and he's in it. I think he's currently the one half ICW tag team champions. I think Logan Smith's very talented for his age. I think he's early 20s, very, very talented for his age. He's really young. Landon Riley's a special talent. I think he's like 19, which makes me feel very old. But I'm trying to think who else. There's so many. I think as much as he's not that likable a guy, I think Jason Reed's got everything a big company looks for. Again, obviously I'm biased, but I think Lou's a character that I could see on a TV product. Again, I'm missing so many out here. But I think we're lucky right now. We maybe don't have, we certainly don't have the buzz that we had at the time we were talking about. But the talent that's in the Scottish scene right now the talent's there. A lot of the talent is really young just now. But the talent, the foundation's there for touchwood another boom period in the next few years potentially.
I absolutely believe it as well, Craig. I mean, you look at SmackDown's getting big deals to go into the USA Network, AEW are getting their pay-per-views potentially on Max, and even in the casual sense as well. We had the Star Series Heels that had 2 seasons, and the Wrestlers, which was on Netflix covering OVW. I mean, there's got to be like another big boom of wrestling coming, right? Do you feel it?
I think so. I think you look at again, if you use sort of the AEW example, now I'm not saying that there's going to be a UK company that draws that crowd at Wembley anytime soon, but that Clash at the Castle a few years ago, I think that definitely shows you that there is a real mainstream appeal for wrestling still in this country. I think that, and then that's where it comes down to us. It comes down to us to, there needs to be somebody that makes himself that next mainstream star, that person that's going to draw in the sort of casual fans. But yeah, I think there definitely is a sort of boom period on the way. You always see on Twitter there's all sorts of I don't understand really why there's people treat a wrestling company as if it's a football team that they support. Like I like WWE, I like AEW. If I just like wrestling, I'll watch whatever's on. So that, but you can see with the appeal that these companies have got, I think that it feels like there's a boom period on the way, but who knows?
No, I agree with that. I mean, that whole tribalism thing where it's like, my company's better than your company, and then behind the scenes, like, all of the wrestlers are just at a party hanging out together, and it's like, you really don't do this at all, do you guys? Shut the fuck up. Oh my God. But what I love as well, we're getting big shows as well. AEW All in Wembley, Clash of the Castle, Money in the Bank. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of that, but can you bring one up to Scotland? I hate traveling down. Yeah. Load of shit. Stand the fucking trains, pay-per-view, and say it was in Scotland, which one would you want to see and why?
Oh, that's a question. I think if it's not going to be WrestleMania, which realistically it wouldn't be, and it can't be SummerSlam because we don't have summers in Scotland.
Nah, true.
So it's got to be a Royal Rumble. Nothing beats the excitement of a Royal Rumble. Kicks off the whole WrestleMania season. You've got the surprise entrance. It's got to be the Royal Rumble.
No, I'm seeing it now. Royal Rumble in Scotland and then WrestleMania in London. It's connected. Makes
there
it
you
sense.
go. There you go.
I mean,
Get you on the booking team, Matt.
I'm dressed to impress, so if Vince is watching, I'm ready. I mean, look, all I know is Ticketmaster, it's a bitch, so I hate when that comes over. It's going to be the worst. Worst experience ever. But before we finish up, I want to ask you a bit of a philosophical question. And I want to know, Japanese wrestling has its own style and history. Mexico, Lucha Libre, and WWE and AEW, and sort of America, the entertainment aspect. But for Scotland, Krieger, what does Scottish wrestling mean to you in particular?
Like purely for a personal aspect.
Yeah.
I think obviously out with my family and stuff, I feel as if it's gave me a sort of, again, without trying to sound too philosophical, I feel as if it's gave me a bit of purpose. You know what I mean? Like I started training when I was, we're talking 2013, so I was maybe 18 or so when I started training. It's at a point in life where I felt pretty directionless, didn't really know where I was going, didn't know what I was going to do. And then I found wrestling. From wrestling, it's where wrestling was responsible for me meeting my girlfriend that I've now been with for 8 years or something. My best friends I've met through wrestling. Most of the experiences that if I'm lucky enough to have grandkids one day that I'll talk to them about is going to be stuff that I've done in wrestling. So it really has. It's changed my life in a lot of ways. So, that's maybe too philosophical, but
truly special, Krieger. Take the philosophical cap up at the moment. You can see it, the future. You have the wee grandkids around you. It's like, your granddad used to spank his friend's arse on the WWE network, millions around. That's our legacy, ladies and gentlemen. But Krieger, my friend, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the Soul Sessions. But what I love to do with every guest, if they want to come see you wrestle in person, what dates have you got lined up for the rest of the year?
Oh, so in terms of the dates, I'm on most, or I should be on most of the ICW dates coming up. I have this coming weekend, I have a show at the Grand Ole Opry in Glasgow, which should be really, really good. A lot of dates that haven't yet been announced. I don't think I'm going back down south or anything this year. So it's mainly sort of around about the central belt of Glasgow. I don't know all the dates off the top of my head, but if anyone is interested, sort of at Krieger UK on Instagram's probably the best place to keep up to date. Instagram's the social media that I seem to understand how to use. So that's the one that I tend to update more often.
Take us back to the day of why can't we? But hey, and viewers, I know in the modern age people are lazy. I want my Netflix all at once, all the episodes. So I will put Krieger's Instagram in the description of this video. You can click it, follow his journey, and see what the man gets up to. But thank you, Krieger, for appearing here on the Soul Sessions. Viewers, thank you again. Subscribe, like, all that shebang. The YouTube shtick. It's been around since 2005. I ain't got to say shit. Well, thank you for tuning in.